Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter video where we are going to focus on something called lambda functions, otherwise known as anonymous functions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to recall the function we wrote before called square. And what it does is it squares a function. So we say def square colon. Then we have our big documentation, so that way we can remember how square works. And then we return x squared. And this is a nice little function. And we can run square 3 and out pops 9 because 3 squared is 9. Now the question is what if there was an easier way? This whole thing, this took 3 lines. Let's be honest, nobody's got time to write 3 lines. Let's do this in 1 line. The way we can do this is with lambda functions. So we write lambda x colon x times x. And then we give this thing a name, which we could call this lambda square. We set lambda square equal to lambda x colon x. And then we can use this exactly the same way that we would use square. We can square 3. We can square 4. Anything you could do with our big fancy 3-line function, you can do with this nice little 1-line function called lambda square, where the syntax for this is just you give it a name. Our name is lambda square. Then you type equals, and then you need to tell the computer that you are going to be using a lambda function. So you type lambda, and then you have input. The input is named x colon output. It's kind of like with dictionaries. So that's really all there is to it. And you might ask yourself, why on earth would I ever want to do this? And it's because sometimes you'll have simple functions which you really only want to use once, and they're really short. So let's revisit our example of sorting. This is probably the most common application of lambda functions. So before we had our thing where we wrote like several lines to sort a list to put the even numbers first. If we want to do this with lambda functions, we do l.sort key equal to, and now we write our lambda function. Lambda input is named x. X goes to x modulus 2 equal 1. So we can run that lambda function all in 1 line, and now let's take a look at what L looks like. Ta-da! The even numbers are now first. And now let's get crazy. Let's make the even numbers go first, but let's also make the numbers go in ascending order within the evens and within the odds. So here we do almost the same thing. We do L.sort key equals lambda input. And now we just add in the line with the comma x. And to make sure that we're using a tuple, let's just add in 1 extra set of parentheses to make it nice and easier to read. So we have the function that sends x to the tuple, where the first entry is x modulus 2 equal to 1, and the second entry is x itself. So we can sort it. And now let's take a look at what L looks like. Beautiful. The evens are first. We go 0, we go 2, we go 4, we go 6, we go 12, we go 14. Then we do the odds. 3, 5, 5, 5, 7, 9. Couldn't be easier. Bam. Okay. So like I said, this is a short video, and we're going to stop here, but I do want to end on a downer. Do not overuse lambda functions. Don't. If lambda functions are great for very short functions that are super compact like this, the downside to lambda functions is you can't document them. Recall for our big, fancy, sophisticated function called square, we had a nice, good, aesthetic-looking docstring. Lambda functions you can't document, so you should only use them for very simple functions. And the rule of thumb is if it doesn't fit on 1 line, 80 characters, don't use a lambda function. So this is where I'm going to stop. I will see you again next time.